Disclaimer: the stories shared on this channel are personal near-death experience and hell testimony accounts.
My name is Rebecca Lynn Morris. I am 42 from Dallas, Texas. On September 3rd, 2011, I died for 9 minutes.
I heard my name, but I couldn't answer. My chest was heavy, like someone sitting on me. The church lights blurred above me, faces melting into the ceiling. Voices shouted. Someone screamed, "She's not breathing." I remember the smell of roses, Ethan's coffin right there in front of me, and then nothing. Just a ringing sound. A single, sharp ring. Like a wedding band hitting stone. And in that moment, everything I ever said started coming back. I didn't plan to die that day. I didn't even plan to cry. I had promised myself I wouldn't make a scene, not at his funeral. I thought I'd sit quietly, look proper, let the world believe I'd moved on. But grief, it doesn't listen to your plans. When they started singing Amazing Grace, I felt my throat tighten. My legs went weak. I saw his face in the coffin, peaceful, too peaceful. And then, everything started spinning. Heartbeat slows, fading. The last thing I remember was whispering, "I'm sorry." But I don't think anyone heard me. Then, silence. No breath. No sound. No weight. And somehow, I was still there, watching, hearing the same song fade into a distant echo. My body below. My daughter crying. But I couldn't touch her. I tried to speak, but my voice wouldn't come out. Only one question filled my mind. Is this how it ends, after all the things I said? It wasn't supposed to end like this. I was supposed to love him, I did once. I think. But life got loud. Bills, long work hours, missed calls, cold dinners. We stopped talking. Then we started arguing, and one night, the night everything broke, I said words I can never take back. It was raining that night. Heavy rain, hitting the window like fingers drumming. He stood by the dresser, looking at me with tired eyes. He looked smaller somehow, thinner, but I was too angry to notice. "Rebecca," he said softly, "please, don't go to bed angry again." And I laughed cold, sharp, the kind of laugh that hides pain. "Ethan, I'm done talking. I'm done pretending we're okay." He came closer. "You don't mean that." "I do," I snapped. "I don't love you anymore." There was silence. A long one. He just stood there, hands shaking a little. Then he nodded, like he already knew. He whispered, "Even if you don't." "I still do." That made me furious. I grabbed my keys and my purse, slammed the door, and left. I didn't even look back. I didn't see his hand clutch his chest. I didn't see the pain behind his eyes. I just heard the rain swallowing my footsteps as I walked away. That night, I slept in a hotel, one of those cold, clean rooms that smell like disinfectant and loneliness. I turned my phone off. I told myself I deserved peace. That I was done carrying a marriage that was already dead. But lying there, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. The silence was too loud. And every few minutes, I thought I heard something, a cough, a voice, maybe just my guilt. I remember whispering, "God, if you're real, why does love hurt like this?" But heaven was silent. The next morning, I went to work like nothing happened. I smiled, answered emails, pretended, until Chloe walked in. Her face was pale, eyes red. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Mom," she said quietly, trembling. "Dad's in the hospital." My hands froze. "What?" "They tried calling you all night. He collapsed." The world tilted. My knees gave out. I couldn't breathe. When I reached the hospital, everything smelled like bleach and fear. Machines beeped. Nurses whispered. And there he was, my husband, lying so still. Dr. Patel stepped out from behind the curtain, wiping his hands on a paper towel. He gave me a look I didn't understand, the kind people give when they're about to say something heavy. "Mrs. Morris," he began slowly, "your husband's condition is critical. I'm afraid the cancer has advanced faster than we hoped." I blinked. "Cancer?" He paused. "Yes, the pancreatic cancer." His tone shifted, careful now, studying my face. "You did know, right?" For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. The world stopped. I shook my head slowly. "No." I didn't. What cancer? What are you talking about? Dr. Patel's brows furrowed. His clipboard lowered. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Morris. I assumed Ethan had told you. He's been battling late-stage pancreatic cancer for several months now. My voice broke. Months? He nodded gently. He said he didn't want you to worry, said he wanted peace. Peace. The word hit me like a knife. He wanted peace, and all I gave him was silence. I sat by his bed, holding his hand. It felt so thin, so fragile. He looked at me with weak eyes and whispered, "Becca." His lips trembled into a faint smile. "I forgive you." I broke. I fell on his chest sobbing. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it, Ethan. I didn't. Please don't leave me." He brushed his fingers across my cheek and said the last thing I ever heard from him. "I love you, even from there." His heart monitor beeped slower, then flatlined. And, just like that, he was gone. After that, I stopped living. I walked, talked, worked, but inside, I was buried with him. I replayed that night every time I closed my eyes. His voice. My words. The rain. I thought about the ring I threw on the floor. About how it rolled under the bed and disappeared. Maybe that's what happened to me too. Days passed. Then came the funeral. I wore black. Smiled for people who didn't know the truth. They said, "He's in a better place." But I wondered, am I? When the pastor said, "Love is stronger than death," I wanted to scream. Because I had killed love with my own mouth. And heaven had heard me. As they carried the coffin out, something inside me snapped. The guilt, the shame, it was too heavy. My chest started tightening. The world blurred. As they lowered the coffin and the pastor said the final prayer, I felt something tearing inside me, like my soul was being peeled away piece by piece. People started walking toward their cars. Umbrellas opened. Rain fell in thin silver lines that blurred everything: faces, flowers, memories. I stood there frozen, staring at the ground that now held everything I had refused to love right. Someone touched my shoulder, maybe Chloe, maybe a friend, I couldn't even tell. All I heard was dirt hitting the coffin. Each thud sounded like judgment. By the time we got into the car, my hands were trembling. Chloe sat beside me, silent, her eyes red from crying. The driver started the engine, and the rain tapped softly on the windows like faint whispers. That's when it began. I heard my own voice. Faint at first, but growing louder in my head. Over and over. The words I'd thrown like knives that night. "I don't love you anymore." My chest tightened. I pressed my hands to my ears. But the words wouldn't stop. They echoed, bouncing off the walls of my skull. I started whispering, "Stop, please stop." But they got louder, angrier, as if someone else was repeating them back to me. Then suddenly, I shouted, "I killed him." The car jerked. Chloe gasped. "Mom," she cried. I was shaking uncontrollably, my breath shallow, vision tunneling. "I killed him. I killed him." I screamed again, my voice breaking like glass. "God," I said it. I said I didn't love him, and now he's gone. Chloe grabbed my hand, tears running down her face. "Mom, stop, please, you didn't kill him." But I couldn't hear her anymore. The guilt was louder than her voice. Every beat of my heart felt like a hammer of accusation. The rain outside blurred into streaks of light. My ears rang. The sound of the engine faded into a hollow hum. "Mom?" Chloe's voice cracked. Her face blurred, fading in and out like a dying signal. Then it hit me, a burning pain in my chest. I gasped, clutching at my heart. My vision went white. "Mom, somebody help." I felt hands reaching for me, voices shouting. But I was already slipping away. The world tilted. My head hit the seat. My body grew heavy, cold, distant. And then silence. I was no longer in the car. No sound. No rain. Only a strange brightness, like fog made of light. And somewhere deep in that silence, I heard it again. My own voice, sharp, merciless, echoing from nowhere and everywhere. "I don't love you anymore." Each word burned through the air like fire. And underneath it, a deeper voice, calm, sorrowful, whispered my name. "Rebecca." Everything around me dissolved. The car, the road, the sound of Chloe crying. It was just me, and the echo of the words that killed everything I loved. Then, nothing. Then, like film rewinding, I saw us again. It was summer once. Ethan and I were that couple everyone whispered about in church parking lots. The Morizas, they'd say, smiling. The ones who still hold hands after 10 years. I can still see that day in our first apartment, tiny, sunlit, full of secondhand furniture and laughter. He was painting the kitchen wall sky blue while I read out loud from a magazine. "Babe, it says here most couples fight about money." He turned, paint streaked on his cheek, and grinned. "Then we're safe. We don't have any." I laughed so hard the brush fell from his hand. We danced barefoot on newspapers, leaving blue footprints all over the floor. We didn't have much, but we had us. I blink and the picture changes. Christmas lights, our little tree leaning to one side. He's standing behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist while I stir cocoa. "Rebecca, you smell like sugar," he'd whisper into my hair. "And you smell like hard work," I teased. He'd chuckle. "That's the perfume of a man who loves you." God, we were happy. When Chloe was born, he cried before I did. "Look at her, Becca," he said, voice shaking. "She's proof God trusts us." That line, "God trusts us," used to echo in me every time life got rough. We promised to keep that trust. To keep us. So when did the distance begin? Maybe it was the night he started coming home late, too tired to talk. Maybe it was the day I stopped waiting at the window. We became polite strangers sharing a house built from old laughter. Still, there were flickers. A hand brushing mine while passing the salt. A silent smile across the church aisle. I ignored them, pretending I'd outgrown the need for soft things. At the funeral, those memories came like waves. Each one sweeter, crueler than the last. I saw him leaning over our daughter's homework, pretending to understand algebra. I heard the way he'd whisper, "My girl," whenever he hugged me after long weeks. I felt the warmth of his breath on my forehead the night we renewed our vows at the lake. The night we promised forever. I clutched my chest. How could forever end so fast? I remembered the townspeople teasing us. "You two give marriage a good name." We'd smile, proud, certain we'd never be like the others who fell apart. But pride is quiet poison. It seeps in through hurt feelings and long silences until love forgets how to speak. Now, staring at that polished wood box, I wanted to scream back through time. To tell the laughing girl in the blue paint kitchen, hold him tighter. Listen longer. Don't let pride speak louder than love. The organ swelled. A hand touched my shoulder. And somewhere between memory and the present, my heart stuttered. The room tilted. "Mom." Chloe's voice cut through the hymn like a blade. Gasps. Shouting. Someone yelled for help. I felt hands grabbing my arms, the pew scraping against the floor, the echo of my name. But it was all drifting away, muffled underwater. "Stay with us," a man's voice shouted. Feet pounded. The pastor's prayer tangled with sobs. I wanted to answer, to tell them I was fine, but my lips wouldn't move. My eyes were open, yet everything was light and blur. And then silence. I blinked. The noise was gone. The air was suddenly still, clear, weightless. Below me, people were crowded around a woman in black. Her body lay limp across the church floor. For a second, I didn't understand. Then I saw Chloe kneeling beside her, shaking, screaming. And realized that woman was me. My heart, my body, was down there. But I wasn't. I tried to reach for my daughter, to touch her hair. My hand passed straight through. A cold rush ran through me. "God, what's happening?" I whispered. Ethan's voice came again, soft and close, as if he were right behind me. "Becca, it's okay. You can come home now." The light above the altar fractured into white shards, spreading like wings. Time slowed. The church, the people, the noise, all of it faded into distance. And as my last heartbeat disappeared into the silence, I felt myself rising, weightless, breathless, leaving the world I once called home. The moment I left my body, a silence larger than any cemetery swallowed me. Not empty, alive. It hummed. I watched. My chest felt hollow and full at once. I was weightless and terrified. At first there was light. Soft, warm, like the first morning after a long storm. I started forward and it called me, like a hand I wanted to hold. But then the light blinked. A beat later the floor beneath me cracked into heat. I remember thinking, this isn't right. The air shifted, sweetness turned bitter. The sky, whatever sky was here, folded in on itself. My feet found ground that burned and bled heat up through my soles. I tried to step back. Something pulled. The world changed fast. Colors bled into black and red. Sound sharpened into edges. The pretty music I'd heard at the funeral warped into a low, grinding chorus. I tasted metal. I smelled hair burning. Not with gore, but with a sour, ancient smoke that reached into my bones. Rebecca. A voice as soft, patient, cut through the smoke. The voice. The guide. It had been there before the fall. It was there now. Calm as a lake. Do not be afraid, it said. Those words were the first thread I clung to. The voice had no face. It felt like warmth around a cold child. It said my name like it was laying a hand on my cheek. But before anything could soften, something else moved in the shadows. A sound like chains clink, clink, the same ring sound that had knocked across my memory in the church. The ring. The small sound kept returning like a joke turned sour. I tried to walk toward the voice. My ankles were caught. Cold steel wound around my wrists. Chains. Heavy. Old. They bit into me. I heard my own breath coming out fast, and then I realized it wasn't my breath at all. It was a chorus of many small sounds, whispers of promises broken, lies left in the dark, words thrown like knives. They told my life back to me, quick flashes, sharp, merciless. The first time I said it, I don't love you anymore, the memory played like a stone dropped into water. Ripples. Ripples turned to waves. Each wave hit a shore of faces I'd ignored. Chloe's eyes, his quiet smile, the late-night dishes he washed while I slept. Why? I cried. Why did you let me say it? I didn't know who I was asking. The chains tightened. The hell I was plunged into was not a place of theatrical flames and monsters. It was a place of truth laid bare and sound made heavy. It was the memory of everything I had thrown away, pronounced louder and purer than any sermon. The heat was real. The pain was not literal flesh burning. It was the burning of regret. The kind you feel under the skin. My hands were cuffed. My ring, my wedding band hung from the chain, but it was wrong. It was blackened, warped. The smooth circle I'd exchanged at the lake was now a twisted piece of iron with words etched into it. When the light caught it, I could read tiny letters, words spoken, words kept. They glowed like embers. Voices roared around me. Not angry, necessarily. Mostly full of sorrow and accusation. People I'd known, people I'd never met. All crying out their stories, promises broken, vows ignored, vows mocked. Each cry was a sentence I'd used in the dark, quiet slanders against what I had once said aloud and then tried to forget. They said my name like a verdict. They called out what I'd done. They spoke the small, private curses we all sometimes hiss under our breath, but here those whispers had weight. Short sentences now. Quick rhythm. Heartbeat fast. The heat hit. I coughed. Smoke burned my eyes. I heard a name. My name over and over. I felt a hand. Not a human hand. A pressure. Cold. Heavy. Rebecca. The voice again. Softer. Nearer. This time not to comfort first, but to warn. You must see. You must remember. It sounded like rain hitting an old tin roof. I wanted to scream. The chains clanged. The ring scraped against iron. The words I said that night, they echoed across this place like thunder. You hear your own voice in a nightmare, but here, it was not a dream. It was testimony. Each word I had spoken in anger became a small flare that licked at the inside of me. I don't love you anymore. The sentence repeated. And each repetition folded into 100 tiny wounds. I fell to my knees in the hot dust. The ground smelled of old ashes and things that had been left to rot. Figures moved in the smoke, people hunched, faces half-turned, mouths open in endless pleading. Their hands reached out. Not to pull me away, but to show me. Show me their scars. Show me their promises. Someone screamed a name. A woman, someone I remembered from a church youth group, reached out with a finger that burned like a coal. She mouthed, "Remember." A man I had judged at the marketplace, his face hollow, cried, "You were warned." "Why did you run?" the voice asked quietly. This time the tone was not scolding. It held the ache of someone who had been hurt by a child they loved. I didn't know how to answer. The truth was messy. Pride, fear, tiredness, 1,000 small cuts. I had wanted peace and thought leaving would buy it. Instead, I left a man with a secret and a child with questions. I cried. Big, ugly sobs that burned the inside of my chest. I didn't know. I didn't know he was sick. I didn't know he needed me. I thought I was free. Chains tightened. The ring scraped. The heat rose. The voices grew louder, not condemning so much as showing, like a mirror slammed in my face. I saw moments I'd discarded, his quiet mornings, the way he'd fix the hem of my dress when no one watched, the nights he sat up with Chloe when she was fevered and wouldn't complain. Then a memory struck me so hard it felt like a punch. The night he had whispered, "Forgive me for hiding pain. I didn't want you to carry it." I had shrugged it off then, too proud to ask questions. My shrug became the shape of a noose in my chest now. I screamed. The sound cracked like glass. It did nothing. It only made the echoes louder. In the middle of the chaos, I searched with my eyes for Ethan. For his face. For anyone I loved. For anything familiar. But he was not there. Not in the smoke, not among the wailing shapes. The thought stabbed me. Where is he? I shouted through the noise. Where is he? Where is Ethan? The chains pulled. The ground under me groaned. Where is he? I asked again, voice thin but desperate. Then, like a hand parting smoke, the voice answered. Calm. Clear. Far-reaching. He is not here. First occurrence of revelation tone. He is not here, Rebecca. The words landed like stones. Not because they were harsh, but because they were true. I wanted to collapse into them. I wanted to beg. My chest felt hollow, as if someone had taken the life out of my bones. Where then? I breathed. My throat was a desert. A pause. The wind shifted. For a second the heat eased, a false stillness. I heard something else beneath the fire, a thread of music, soft and pure, like a bell underwater. It was a sound that didn't belong here. Come, the voice said. This was the second time it spoke in the pattern I would learn to know: introduction, warning, revelation. It said my name and then a command. Not punishment first. Instruction. I pulled. The chains resisted. But the call was stronger. The small chord of music tugged my soul and the iron gave a little. The ring scraped like a key. I felt the metal cut and then loosen. I was dragged, not willingly but not wholly against myself either, along a narrow path. The air changed. Temperature shifted. The heat dropped, then turned cool like rain on a rooftop at night. Shadows thinned. It was a stillness that felt like the quiet right before sunrise. For a second I thought, maybe I was being moved to a new chamber of this place. Another kind of punishment? Another kind of showing? Fear clutched me. But the voice was steady. You must remember, Rebecca. Words have weight. Words have weight. Love is obedience, not a feeling. Those lines struck me harder than chains. They were simple. They were true. Something in me, some hard, cracked part, began to crack open. There was a sound like water. Coolness licked my face. The smoke gave way to a light that smelled like rain and baked bread and old good mornings. I blinked and saw green, real green, and a sky that didn't fold. There were trees that moved like people breathing. The chain around my wrist still held me, but it was thinner now, less vicious. And there he was. Ethan stood across a field of light, not in a coffin, not pale and small, but whole. He looked as he had on our best days, tired, yes, but peaceful. He wasn't burning. He wasn't bent by shame. He reached out with hands that trembled. Ethan? I breathed. The name pulled a sound I hadn't used in months. It tasted like forgiveness. He smiled. Not a fixed, empty smile, a real one. Becca. He said my name like water. He came closer, and I could see his eyes, deep and steady. He was not a voice in the crowd. He was him. Alive in a way that made my chest ache. But I was still bound. Chains clung to me. The ring on the chain hung heavy, but it was no longer blackened. It shimmered with something like hope and sorrow mixed. My hand shook. I reached. My fingers could not close around his. "Where were you?" I asked raw. Why didn't you tell me?" My voice broke. He looked at me like the man who had loved me through late nights and empty refrigerators. He took a breath, like he was holding oceans back. "I didn't want to take from you what I thought you needed," he said simply. "I wanted to spare you fear. It was my failing. I'm sorry." His voice was not accusing. It was soft as prayer. I dropped to my knees in the light. Tears, real, warm tears, ran down my face. I said the worst thing. I choked. I walked away. "I left you alone." I said, "I don't love you anymore." The memory came back like a sting. It burned. I felt the echo of those words again, only now they were heavy stones in my hands. He stepped closer, but did not touch me. The light shimmered with rules I did not know. "I forgave you," he whispered. "I forgave you at the hospital, before I left." His voice split me open. I said I still loved you. He lifted his hand and laid it against his chest. "I told the nurse to tell you if you came." My sobs shifted into something between wailing and relief. I'd been carrying guilt like a boulder. He told me forgiveness had already been given. But the chains around me still held. The voice, gentle, steady, spoke again, but now it had no anger. Only explanation. "A promise is a promise. You spoke words, and heaven keeps what we speak. Mercy meets confession, but truth must be held to the light." I felt the truth like heat and cold together. Mercy was coming. But first I had to see what my words had built. I had to feel the weight. I had to understand the price. Not to be damned, but to be healed. Ethan's hand hovered near mine. He did not pull at the chains. "Come home," he said, voice steady. "Come home with me." I wanted to. I wanted to fall into him and never leave. But the chain was still there. The place between us hummed with the sound of judgment and mercy sitting side by side. And in that humming I heard one last thing, not a reprimand, but a pleading whisper that would follow me the rest of my days. "Remember, words have weight." The field of light stretched on. The chain tugged and loosened a fraction. The sky waited. My story was not over. But the line between what I had done and what could be repaired had been made plain. The chains loosened like old rope finally giving way. Light, real light, flooded the place where the field of burning words had been. It came from everywhere at once, under my feet, above my head, through the grass between my knees. The smell of smoke was gone. In its place came rain and bread and the clean smell of a morning after wrongdoing has been forgiven. The voice, it spoke my name again, but this time it was gentle like someone tucking a child under a warm blanket. "Rebecca, you have seen. Now come." He waits. That name, Ethan's voice, filled the space in me that grief had made hollow. He stood there, not small, not broken, but whole. He reached out. I reached back, and the chains fell off. They dropped with a clatter that sounded like the beginning of a choir. I fell into him like water into a bowl. For a moment there was no story. Only breath. Only that familiar thud of a heart that loved me through my worst. He smelled like the kitchen at dawn, like coffee and forgiveness. He didn't say, "I told you so." He said, "Becca." I wanted to stay. I wanted to walk with him in that light forever. But the voice, I heard it then not as a judge but as a shepherd, spoke softly. "You will go back. It is not time to stay. Mercy meets you here. Live what you learn." I held his hand. I wanted to pin him to that spot and never let go. He squeezed back once, like a promise, and then the world peeled away. Air slammed into me like a tide. The hospital lights were harsh. Machines beeped. Someone was shouting my name. I tasted antiseptic and coffee and tears. Hands were on me firm, human. My lungs burned as if learning to breathe again. Mom, wake up." Chloe's face hovered above mine, smudged mascara, hair pulled back, eyes wide with terror and hope. Her mouth moved, but her words were muffled. Mom, come on. Please come back. I opened my eyes. Everything was too bright. The monitor made a steady sound, then a loud one as a nurse called out a number. A man's voice I recognized, not the voice, not Ethan, Dr. Patel, saying, "She's breathing. We have a pulse." Relief flooded the room like a wave. I said something then, soft, broken. "Ethan?" My voice sounded like gravel. Chloe sobbed, "He forgave you, Mom." The words hit me like an ocean. I came back, but nothing was the same. I expected peace to follow. Instead, a storm moved in. For months, I woke with the echo of that hot place. The metal, the voices, the rings scraping. At night I'd scream, "I killed him," and wake choking, clutching the bedsheets. I'd relive every detail. Our kitchen, his tired smile, the hospital smell, his last whisper. The images wouldn't stop. People called it shock. The doctor said, post-traumatic stress. The psychiatrist wrote down words like adjustment disorder and grief reaction. Friends said, "It'll pass. You'll be okay." They offered casseroles and quiet hugs. Chloe sat with me for hours and held my hand while I trembled. I saw a psychiatrist. He was kind. He asked me to tell the story again and again, like medicine. "When did it start?" he asked. "What do you see?" I told him everything. He drew little boxes on paper and told me breathing exercises. He gave me pills for sleep. He told me, "Many people in grief feel guilt. But it's not your fault." It didn't help. Not really. Because my guilt was not just about what happened, it was about words I had spoken like a curse and the echo they made. The doctor could not hear the sound of fire. He couldn't measure the way the ring burned into my palm even when it wasn't there. Months passed. I went to counseling. I read books. I prayed with people who said the right things. I went to church and nodded at verses. I tried to smile. But at night, I'd whisper to the dark, "I killed him. I killed him." It was a prayer and a curse, and I did not know how to make it stop. Then one morning, while I sat in the kitchen staring at a coffee cup I couldn't finish, the voice came back, soft and close, and not in a dream this time. It came when my hands were empty and my heart was raw. "Rebecca," it said, "your guilt is real. Let it call you to change, do not let it crush you." Mercy meets confession. Tears fell like rain. I prayed out loud then, not the practiced prayers I used to say in church, but small, ugly prayers. "Lord, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." I thought of Ethan's hand on his chest, "I forgive you," and something inside me shifted. The change wasn't sudden. It was a slow untying. I began to tell people, first Chloe, then my pastor. I said the words out loud, "I don't love you anymore." I said them into the air until they lost their power. I said, "He forgave me before he went. God forgave me." Saying it was like cleaning a wound from the inside. One night, a woman came to my home after I had shared the story at church. She collapsed in my arms and cried, "Your story saved my marriage." She showed me divorce papers torn up in the trash. Another man told me he stopped seeing his girlfriend because he remembered his vow. Mail came, messages from strangers. My husband and I slept in different rooms, but we heard you and we talked. Those letters felt like fingers pulling the chains from another life. I started to speak publicly. At first my voice shook. I coughed. I stumbled over words. But then I learned to tell it plain and true. I said, words are not toys. They have weight. Love is obedience, not a feeling. People cried. Some frowned. Some rolled their eyes. But some came to the front and wept and said they needed prayer. The psychiatrist later said it was therapeutic. Telling your story helps healing. Maybe. But I know the real thing that fixed me was grace meeting my brokenness. The voice didn't erase memory. It taught me to live with it differently, to let it fuel my work rather than my shame. I started a small group, no banner, no website at first, just a few couples in a church basement. We talked about promises. We learned to say sorry. We practiced listening. We learned to forgive. We called it Vow Reborn. Chloe helped. She made tea, set chairs, handed out tissues. She'd laugh sometimes and tell me, "Mom, you used to be the strong one." I'd smile and say, "I'm getting there." One Sunday, in front of a shaky, honest crowd, I told the story the way it had been told to me in the field of light. I told them about the chains and the ring and the voice. Afterward, a young woman came forward, shaking, tears streaming. "I almost signed the papers," she said. "I tore them up after I heard you." She put her face in my hands and said, "Thank you." I couldn't stop the sob that came out of me. It was a good sound. It sounded like a bell. My life never went back to how it was. There are nights I still wake with the echo. But now, when the scream comes, I answer it with truth and prayer. I remember Ethan's forgiveness and try to give it away. If you're listening, if you've ever said something to cut someone loose, hear me. Words have weight. Love is an act. Don't wait until the silence holds your story nor pride set in. Share this with 3 of your favorite people, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications bell. Let's pray. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for another chance. Lord Jesus, thank you for mercy that still speaks today. Give us the courage to keep our promises, the humility to ask forgiveness, and the grace to forgive others. Use this story to wake us up, to bring back what pride has let go. Amen, and let me know where you are watching from.